If we are one, how do we achieve samadhi, or oneness, with all that is? How do we consistently raise our consciousness to the eventual point where words no longer have meaning, no longer convey the ecstasy of the pure union with Source itself? In our last episode, we delved into the question of what are parallel realities and how do they relate to spirituality? How the universe consists of infinite coexisting universes where each dimension contains different versions of us living out different life possibilities based on various choices, thoughts, and energies. Also, how spiritually these parallel realities are seen as manifestations created through universal consciousness, with each thought or intention generating a new branch or timeline in the multiverse. We also spoke of how consciousness collapses these possibilities into the single reality we actually experience, yet other versions of ourselves can exist simultaneously in these alternate realities, separated by subtle frequency barriers, but interconnected by a shared consciousness. But if we are one, how do we move our way through these vibrational layers into a higher conscious connection with all that is, in the midst of this continuing turmoil and negativity that so many souls are struggling to move through at this time? How do we overcome the obstacles that would bind us into the illusion of this physical reality through fear and separation, holding us back from the ultimate awakening of ourselves as divine aspects of the one, of the whole? How do we get ourselves to and keep ourselves in the state of samadhi, realizing ourselves as the personification of the one? Hi, I'm Daryl T. Johnson, a musician, a teacher, and a QHHT hypnosis practitioner. I'd like to welcome all of you to episode 13 of If We Are One. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, and Happy New Year to all of you. I hope your manifestations in this new year are consistent with your true excitement and mission. In this episode, I want to provide you with a greater understanding of the term cosmic consciousness and how it is usually described less as something you achieve and more as something you uncover by steadily clearing what obscures it. In these current times of discord, fear, and information overload, the path is less about escape and more about learning to stay open-hearted and clear in the middle of it all. Remember our reference to the eye of the needle and the eye of the storm? Cosmic consciousness is usually described as a heightened or expanded state of awareness in which a person feels directly, vividly connected with the whole universe or reality as a single living unity. It is often presented as a higher or more inclusive form of consciousness than ordinary self-awareness. In many spiritual and psychological writings, Cosmic consciousness means experiencing oneself not just as an individual mind or body, but as part of or identical with a boundless field of awareness that includes all beings and phenomena. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? People who describe such states often report a sense that everything is alive, meaningful, and pervaded by consciousness or spirit. Common themes and characteristics that people who have achieved this state include a feeling of unity or oneness with all things, where the usual boundary between me and world becomes thin or disappears altogether. A strong sense of peace, love, or bliss, often accompanied by the feeling that really is fundamentally good or harmonious, despite outward indications to the contrary. A perception of timelessness or eternity, as if ordinary clock time loses its grip, and there is just a vast present, here and now. A conviction that this state reveals a deeper truth about existence, sometimes interpreted as seeing the universe as divine. Cosmic consciousness points to a direct felt sense that your deeper identity is not the small, separate self, but an aware presence inextricably connected with all beings and the whole unfolding universe. This shift does not erase your individuality. Instead, it recontextualizes it as one wave in a vast ocean, which naturally softens fear and anger because you no longer feel quite as isolated or threatened. Now, there are two ways of approaching this state. One way may be considered vertical, while the other may be considered horizontal. The vertical approach moves into deepening, more direct, and non-ordinary states of awareness via meditation, contemplative prayer, or simple practices sometimes called samadhi or peak experiences, which I referenced at the beginning of this episode. The horizontal approach, one learns how to integrate that awareness into everyday life, relationships, and engagement with a suffering world, so that spaciousness and compassion start to show up in the middle of conflict, not just on the cushion, as it were. Both are necessary. One without the other can create either spiritual bypass, escaping the world, or burnout, facing everything with no larger ground. So balance with and engagement in the world is an important consideration here. Several traditions converge on a small set of reliable practices that help to inoculate you from toxic world elements and move you more into cosmic consciousness. Some of these practices include, but are certainly not limited to, regular silent practice, 20 to 40 minutes once or twice daily of meditation, breath awareness, open monitoring or mantra, with the intention to rest as awareness itself rather than as the stream of thoughts and emotions. Simply put, to just be. Also, contemplation and prayer, periods of heartfelt inquiry. What am I really in relation to all that is? A devotional opening toward the whole, which softens ego defenses and invites a larger perspective. It always helps to study wisdom texts, engaging with writings from people who report stable cosmic realization can gradually reshape your sense of what is real and possible. One perfect example of this is the autobiography of a yogi, the autobiography of Paramahansa Yogananda. This is a spiritual classic published in 1946. It recounts Yogananda's life, his search for his guru, and his teachings in Kriya Yoga. The key to this or any similar inquiry is not to memorize, but to let them challenge and expand your personal worldview. Consistency matters more than intensity. A simple, steady rhythm is like dripping water that eventually wears through stone. Remember, you live in eternity. What's the rush? Now, let's talk about implementing these practices while dealing with fear and anger. In the current climate, it is very important to understand that fear and anger are not signs that you are failing. They are the very material of transformation. Traditions that speak of cosmic consciousness emphasize that what blocks it is not the presence of difficult emotions, but identification with them. As a practical approach, when fear or rage arises, silently label it, fear is here, or anger is here. And feel its sensations in the body without immediately acting or building a story around it. This begins to separate awareness from the emotional storm. This ties into my earlier episodes when I spoke of being more the observer in the lessons of life. Simple techniques such as lengthening the exhale, feeling the contact of your feet with the ground, or widening your visual field helps the nervous system shift out of threat mode so that wider, more connected perspectives can reappear. When you are calmer, gently ask, who is afraid or who is angry? And look directly for the self that seems to be under attack. Even brief glimpses that the I is more fluid and spacious than it appears gradually loosens fear's grip. With respect to anger, remember that our body physiologically moves through the sensations of anger for no more than 15 to 20 seconds. If anger continues after that, it is no longer anger, but judgment. Over time, fear and anger become waves moving through a larger ocean of awareness, rather than defining you as to who you are. In a world full of conflict, the goal is not to seal yourself off from pain, but to stay permeable without being overwhelmed. Many accounts of cosmic consciousness report a simultaneous increase in universal love and a decrease in personal fear, including the fear of death, which changes how one encounters collective crisis. It's probably worth mentioning here that one may need to limit exposure to outrage-driven media. Choose specific windows to engage with news and causes, and pair them with grounding or contemplative time so your system can metabolize what it takes in. Also, supporting a cause, showing up for someone nearby, tending to your immediate environment can become expressions of the same universal consciousness you touch in meditation, making the sense of connection tangible rather than abstract. Now remember that it is so important to see through polarity. Whenever possible, notice how us versus them narratives lower your vibration and shrink your consciousness into a tribal defensive posture. Deliberately include the other side in your field of compassion. Not to excuse harm, but to recognize that confusion and suffering run through all parties. This is one of the hardest and most transformative moves on the path. With this perspective, even dark times become part of the learning process of awakening, not obstacles to it. Stay humble. Traditions that describe cosmic or superconscious states emphasize qualities like fearlessness, reduced ego, and a stable sense of inner joy and peace, rather than the spectacular visions. Not that those would not occur. Over time, you may notice less reactivity and quicker return to balance after being triggered. You become quieter, with a more spacious sense of self, with growing intuition of being part of a larger living field. When you do speak, you practice, as the Buddha expressed, the 3 filters. Is what you are saying true, necessary, and kind? If it does not meet all 3 requirements, it should not be said. You gain an increasingly spontaneous compassion, even for those you once condemned. These are all indications that the same consciousness spoken of as cosmic is beginning to shine more clearly through your everyday life, even if no grand experience has occurred. The paradox is that relaxing any demands to arrive and simply committing to sincere practice, honest self-examination, and grounded love in a hurting world often opens the very state you are seeking. Now, I want to shift gears slightly here and talk about terminology. Often you may hear the term cosmic consciousness and universal consciousness used interchangeably. The question that might arise is, are they the same thing? They are used slightly differently in different traditions, but in most modern spiritual writing, universal consciousness and cosmic consciousness point to the same underlying reality. Many teachers explicitly say that terms like universal consciousness, cosmic consciousness, God, or boundless presence are just different names for one universal field of being or awareness that pervades everything. Some contemporary teachings use universal consciousness and cosmic consciousness interchangeably. They describe a boundless, centerless consciousness that is the substance of all existence, within which all individual minds and forms appear. In that view, your personal awareness is already an expression of this universal or cosmic consciousness, and awakening is simply recognizing that fact. However, other authors make a subtle distinction. Cosmic consciousness can mean the realized state in which the individual self awakens to its unity with the universal, while universal consciousness names the ever-present divine or all-encompassing awareness itself. Here, cosmic consciousness is the experiential merger of the individual with the universal field, whereas universal consciousness is the infinite field that exists whether or not any individual recognizes it. Tomato, tomato. You be the judge. Now, one might ask, how does this correlate to Christ consciousness Buddha nature, or Krishna consciousness. All three terms point to a similar kind of realization, an awakening beyond the narrow ego into a universal or divine awareness. But they arise from different traditions and emphasize different symbols and nuances. Cosmic consciousness is a broad, often cross-traditional term for an expanded state of awareness in which the individual feels one with the universe or with all pervading reality of God. Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, and Krishna consciousness each describe the same kind of awakening, universal awareness, but expressed through the imagery, theology, and practices of Christianity, Buddhism, and certain Hindu traditions respectively. In this sense, cosmic consciousness can be seen as a generic or content-free label, while the other three are flavored by specific sacred figures and narratives. The emphasis here is less on my consciousness is the cosmos and more on an intimate, loving relationship with a personal God. Yet the result still includes transcendence of ego, profound unity with the divine, and transformation of perception, which parallels other cosmic consciousness descriptions. One way to frame the relationship with cosmic consciousness is to consider it as an impersonal term for realization of universal, absolute reality or unity. Finally, how do these understandings correlate to the notion that we are all sparks of awareness of all that is? If we understand all that is all there is, that nothing exists outside of it, would it be true to say that we are all that is itself, created to provide individual and collective experience for the one? Well, in the all that is view, cosmic consciousness traditions all point to different ways of describing how the one reality expresses and knows itself through many centers of awareness. Within that framework, it is coherent to say that each of us is both a spark or facet of all that is, and at the deepest level, not truly separated from all that is itself. When we say we are all sparks of awareness of all that is, we are stating that one universal consciousness underlies everything, and individual minds are localized expressions or focal points of that single field. In that sense, each person is like a lens through which the one looks at and experiences a unique angle on itself, a different point of view, a different perspective, without anything ever existing outside that one field. The term spark points to a partial or localized expression, a point of view. All that is points to the totality, the whole field. Both descriptions refer to the same reality from different levels. You can look at it this way. The wave and the ocean are not two, even though they can be conceptually distinguished. In cosmic consciousness, the one reality is directly recognized as the living, unified cosmos through an individual mind. The wave awakening to its ocean nature. Are we all that is itself? Well, the short answer is yes. That statement can be considered true at the deepest level, with an important nuance about perspective. From the relative experiential perspective, I, you, appears as one finite spark with a particular body, history, and viewpoint. From the absolute non-dual perspective, the true I is the underlying awareness that all that is all there is. Nothing stands outside it. Experiencing cosmic consciousness is described in many traditions as a gradual ripening rather than a one-time trick. It usually grows out of ethical living, regular contemplative practice, and a deep shift in identity from separate self to participating in a larger whole. In moving towards cosmic consciousness, our body, our nervous system, and character need preparation to hold such an expanded awareness, such a high vibration. This preparation usually includes more refinement, truthfulness, non-harming, compassion, emotional maturity, and a stable, balanced life, so that the experience does not feel overwhelming or destabilizing. Systematic meditation or contemplative prayer that trains attention to rest in awareness itself rather than in passing thoughts and sensations is essential. Self-inquiry or contemplative reflection that questions the assumption I am only this separate body, mind. Gently exploring the background, witnessing awareness that is always present is absolutely necessary. Devotional or heart-centered practice, such as gratitude, devotion to the divine, or love for all beings, that softens the self-centered ego and opens a sense of reverence toward the larger whole is a must. We need to shift our perspective of identity. Instead of assuming consciousness is produced inside a separate head, one should consciously adopt and stabilize the sense that awareness is more fundamental than the individual, and that the individual is an expression within that larger field, that larger whole. When necessary, it's all right to seek guidance from those that have a better understanding of the process that moves us closer to cosmic consciousness. There's no reason to live in a vacuum. Equally important is integrating, living out and practicing unity through ethical action, service, and steady practice so that the realization becomes embodied in daily life rather than only sought as a peak experience. When all is said and done, our journey to cosmic consciousness ultimately becomes the simple but profound act of remembering and awakening to the realization that we are already God Source itself. We'll be talking more about these and other topics in future installments. And if there is anything that you would like me to discuss or any questions that you may have about anything that I have shared, please feel free to mention it by leaving a question or a comment in the comment section. As always, if you have found any of this information at all helpful or enlightening, please like, subscribe, and share with others. I keep seeing new people coming to this space, and I am so grateful to all of you for being a part of this ongoing movement to a oneness consciousness. So in parting, I send you my love. And if we are one, let's all live in peace, love, and joy.